Hi everyone, this is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. This is the ongoing series where I speak about my trauma and my abuse experiences for the purpose of sharing with other trauma and abuse survivors so that they can uh, have more information that helps them to have clarity and make decisions, and then to ultimately live the life that they want to live, free of abuse and trauma. And so today's topic is about financial abuse. And I thought that was appropriate because we are in tax season in the United States, and April 15th is tax day. And that simply means that if we haven't filed our taxes by April 15th, we're going to need to file for an extension. And I wanted to share a little bit about financial abuse that I have experienced, because some of the financial abuses that we do experience might not register at the time as financial abuse. That certainly happened to me. And before we go any further, I'd just like to remind all of my viewers, please, if you could, bring yourself into a state of anchored and groundedness. And at any time during the video, whether you're listening or watching, if you become triggered, if you begin to feel that feeling that you're becoming triggered, please shut off the video and go into your highest best self-care. And this is absolutely essential for our wellness, to be attuned to ourselves and to know when we're getting that feeling, because I don't want any harm to come to you or anyone from listening to my videos and from being triggered. And we can be triggered when we're talking and thinking about financial abuse. It's very, very easy to get into that state. So with that, I will begin. So some of the things that I will reference today, I have spoken about in other videos, but what I really wanted to focus on is how we can learn to recognize when someone is taking advantage of us financially. And there are different names for it. Some people call it financial abuse, some people call it economic abuse. It's essentially the same thing. We can be financially abused literally at any age, at any phase of our life. It's not uncommon at all to see resources on the internet for people who are safeguarding the rights of people who are disabled, and people who are elderly, and people who are at risk adults. And so this is something that I take very seriously, and I just want to share what I've learned along the way. So I had been experiencing financial abuse in a relationship for quite some time before I was able to put it together. And if that has happened to you, I'd like to pause right now and just speak just for a brief moment about how vitally important self-compassion is when we're speaking about any form of abuse, including financial abuse. Self-compassion is what keeps us from going off into the weeds and getting angry at ourselves for allowing it to happen. We do not need to go in that direction. It doesn't serve us. It's really tempting to, and I did it a whole bunch of times, but it's kind of a fruitless exercise. It just doesn't bring us anything that we need. And instead of shaming ourselves and blaming ourselves and calling ourselves stupid and giving ourselves all kinds of negative self-talk, like, how on earth could you not have seen that this person was taking advantage of you, and how could you let it go on for such a long time? We can flip that over to, I was young, I was inexperienced, I was with a master manipulator, I was in the presence of somebody who was a masterful liar. I could not see what was happening because I was so, like the late Dr. Roberta Shaler used to say on her Monday night podcast, she referred to this as being worn down and torn down. If you're in a state of being worn down and torn down, it's really, really difficult to advocate for yourself at times. So we can just kind of gently set that down and say, I was good enough. I was smart enough. I was tired. I was taken advantage of, because not because I'm weak, and because my mind isn't working right and I don't have a backbone, but because I crossed paths with someone who would do me harm, and they can be extremely slick at what they're doing, and they fly under the radar, and they operate in the dark, and they do things hoping that we will never ever awaken and confront them and um, make a boundary, or a whole bunch of them, as the case may be, and that they really really rely on us being kind of under their spell. That's a really loose reference to being trauma bonded. A lot of us did get financial abuse. We had experiences of being financially abused, oftentimes because the trauma bond that we were experiencing was very, very strong. And if you have experienced trauma bond, you will understand it is not something that we consciously engage in. It is a very, very, very subconscious set of circumstances, and a very subconscious awareness, but not much of a conscious awareness that it's happening. Again, when we're dealing with people with high narcissistic traits, high antisocial personality traits, low conscience, low to no empathy, or no conscience, no empathy, no ability to feel or express remorse, or extremely rudimentary ability to feel or express remorse. The people who have these traits, unfortunately, also come into our lives with something called glibness. Glibness is a superficial charm. They have a way of smiling. They do head tilts. They do voice modulation. They do all these different things that are extremely charming at times. And human beings are made so that, I mean, the way we are, the way we're set up on the inside is we want to trust other human beings. We want and need a sense of community. We want and need to partner with another human being. We want to be able to trust. We want to have an open heart and an open mind, and we want to be able to be transparent with other people. And we believe, because of our nature, because of our human nature, that they will be open and transparent with us. None of us wants to walk around being highly suspicious of a new partner, or a partner that we've been in relationship with for a considerable time. But the more the evidence can be in front of us, the more we can go into a state of dissociation, because as we start to realize, ooh, that hurt me, or ooh, that shouldn't have happened, or this person's doing something that doesn't match what I know about them, or this one is really, really difficult for our nervous system, is when the cognitive dissonance is happening, where we see, like, let's say, for instance, a statement comes in the mail and it's addressed to both of you. So you open it and it says something on that statement that they told you didn't happen. If you say, well, did you purchase that thing? Because I thought we agreed that we were not going to purchase it. And they say, no, I didn't. And then the statement comes, and then you realize that, yes, they did, but they lied and they kept it secret from you. Well, there's all kinds of things in that direction that could be happening now, or may have happened in the past. But I'm just going to give a couple of examples of what financial abuse looked like in my life, to help others to understand what it can look like, because it might not always be the same thing to everybody. But first, before I do that, I just want to share a little bit of information. This is from thehotline.org. If you want to go to that hotline, it's www.thehotline.org, which is the National Abuse Hotline. And there's National Domestic Violence Hotline is technically the name for it, okay? But this is an article on their site, and it's called "What is Financial Abuse?" And I'm just going to briefly read this article for you. There are many different types of abuse that someone can experience. Many people understand physical abuse due to the marks or injuries that it leaves. However, there are other types of abuse that are harder to see but can be equally devastating. Financial abuse is one such type. As with all types of abuse, financial abuse is rooted in the desire of one partner to have, and this is in purple letters here, power and control over the other. And I'll pause here for one moment. Lundy Bancroft, the author of Why Does He Do That? And Should I Stay or Should I Go? And also The Joyous Recovery. Lundy Bancroft makes very, very clear in his books that the abuser abuses for one reason, and that is because they feel entitled to. There is another book that I was quoting for many months in my videos, and I'm blanking on the name of the authors right now, but their take on it is two women who wrote the book, and it's on my shelf. Just pause for just a second to get that in my view. It is not up on that shelf, which means it's in a book bag in my car. I travel with a considerable amount of books. But anyways, the book that I'm referring to, that's written by two women it was written around 1980, and they state that abusers abuse for the simple reason that they want to. As a certified trauma recovery coach, I can tell you I'm very proud of my viewpoint, which is I have combined those two reasons. And I tell my clients that there are two reasons why an abuser would abuse: financial, sexual, emotional, spiritual, verbal, psychological, spiritual abuse, neglect, all these different types of abuse. They do it for the two reasons, which combines both of those concepts. One is that they do it because they feel entitled to, and the other one is that they do it simply because they want to. And I think that those two beliefs kind of twisted together really does cover exactly what's going on inside the mind and the behavior of every single abuser on the planet. But in this information here online at thehotline.org, they say that it's all rooted in the desire of one partner to have power and control over the other. I refer to that as the goal of abuse. The goal is to maintain or to achieve power and control over an individual or a group. So we have the reason they want to, the reason they do it, which is to have, because they feel entitled and because they want to, but the ultimate goal is power and control over the other. A partner who chooses to abuse will control their partner's finances or their ability to provide for themselves through a job or public assistance they receive. The following examples are not a comprehensive list, but give an idea of how a partner could be financially abusive. So examples of financial abuse on their website are: you have a joint account and your partner monitors your spending and yells at you for every purchase. Second one is your partner gives you an allowance and you are only allowed to spend that money on what they need. Well, some people disagree and say that if your partner gives you an allowance, that right there is financial abuse. If it's a mutually agreed upon amount that each of you gets, which is what your budget allows, that's not really so much financial abuse if there's equality in it. But if it's one person has free reign to spend and the other person is on an allowance, and you're not choosing to be on that allowance, your partner is forcing you to be on that allowance, that's financial abuse. Your partner affects your ability to work, such as causing you to be consistently late or preventing you from going to work some days, leading to issues or potential firing. Your partner receives your public assistance check and refuses to give it to you. Your partner takes any money earned from you and controls where you spend it. In these situations, the partner who is abusive has control over the finances and has the power to determine if the other partner can work or not. This imbalance is abusive. Though financial abuse can be hard to see, it doesn't impact many people who are experiencing abuse. According to our most recent report, 27% of our contacts who were in abusive relationships reported experiencing financial abuse. This number has sadly grown since the COVID-19 pandemic and will continue to be an issue for survivors. Financial abuse can lead to long-term issues for survivors even when they leave the abusive relationship. We refer to this as the after effects of trauma. Even if we leave the relationship, the after effects are still within us, and we are affected in trauma. With trauma, we're affected 5 ways, which are emotionally, psychologically, biologically, neurologically, and neurobiologically. So it can affect their credit score, ability to find work, or put their finances in disarray. Programs like the Allstate Foundation's Moving Ahead curriculum can help survivors learn how to rebuild their finances and improve their credit score. So our advocates are here 24/7 to help answer any questions and offer support. So you can reach out to the hotline.org. That is a very simple thing to do, and I'm going to show you right here. You see that red button at the top? That is the panic button on their website. You hit that, it's exit. And if you need to get off this site, and it clears your cache, makes it so that anybody who grabs your phone cannot look and see what you were just on. So I just want you to know that it does get you out of that situation very quickly if you just hit that button, if you happen to use their website. All right, so that's the information from the hotline.org, which again is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And it is an incredible resource for people. I've used it many, many, many times. So now I'm going to share those examples that are not listed on the hotline.org, because for as many different people who've experienced financial abuse, that's how many different ways human beings can figure out how to abuse each other. And I'm not saying that if you are a survivor of domestic violence, particularly with financial abuse, that you did it back to anybody. I didn't mean to imply that at all when I said when people abuse each other. I'm simply saying there's an abuser who abuses the abused. And if they are doing that, there are many, many different creative ways, because a human mind is infinitely creative, and they do come up with all kinds of different ways. The types of financial abuse that I experienced didn't give me a whole bunch of red flags, because they didn't seem to have direct, clearly visual signs for me. This is financial abuse. So that's one of the reasons why I want to share them today, is because it will help you to understand there are types of financial abuse that don't have the bright neon flashing letters on them that get our attention. So here we go. I had the typical ones where I was told, when you get your paycheck, you sign it. This is a long time ago when there was no such thing as direct deposit yet, back in the 1980s when I was first married. Immediately after I was married, my spouse said, you sign your paycheck and you put it on my dresser. I take care of the finances. Well, that wasn't part of the discussion before we got married. That was just something that came out of the blue right away after we got married. And we were married just a few weeks. Might have even been as little as 2 weeks, but it was a really short time where I was told, you don't make enough money, you have to get another job. Not quit this job and get a different job. Keep the job that you have, but also work a second job. And I thought that that was okay, because my spouse said, I just got a second job, so now you have to get a second job. I actually thought that was okay to do to some. Well, I already did it myself. I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not willing to do. So we should have more money, which means you got to work more. So he went and got a second job, and then required of me that I get a second job, which I immediately did. I went back to a store that I used to work at, and I said, I need a second job. And they said, what day can you start? There wasn't even an application. I had worked there, as one of my very first jobs when I was 18 years old. And they took me back without any problem when I was 21. And off and on, I worked there for a little over 11 years. But that wasn't the end of the financial abuse. My spouse bought lottery tickets out of marital money, and each week he would come home from the supermarket and say, here's our lotto tickets. I bought us lotto tickets. Maybe we're going to hit it big someday. Wouldn't that be awesome if we did? So week after week after week after week, Saturday nights, he was sitting on the ottoman staring at the TV at the end of the 11 o'clock news, waiting for the lotto draw. Well, sometime within our first year of marriage, his numbers hit. Our numbers hit. And we would have won, I don't know, it was like somewhere between $1 and $2 million. But we were off by one number, and the number that we were supposed to have was 32, but instead we had the number 23. So not only was it not the number that we needed, but it was transposed, the actual number. So instead of having at least $1 million in winnings, it was 1,100. And in 1985 dollars or 1986 dollars, that was an enormous amount of money to two kids who were only 21, 22 years old. And he went to the supermarket with his ticket to cash it in, and when he came home, I was so naive. I said, "Are we going to split it? You referred to this as our lottery ticket." And he's like, "No, we're not splitting it. I have plans for this money." And I said, actually, I'm wondering if you can't split it with me. It's 1,100. Could you please just give me 100? And the answer was no. And it wasn't a no with a smile or an explanation. It was just a flat no and walk away. And here I am thinking, I thought we loved each other, and I don't want to have to grovel and beg, and I don't want to have to explain what I need this money for, but if you have two jobs and I have two jobs, and I'm not allowed to cash my own paychecks, I'm given an allowance each week when we do our budgeting at the coffee table, and we put money into envelopes, putting cash into envelopes to pay our bills, and all of our bills were being paid on time. But he was giving himself $40 for his wallet at the end of figuring out all the finances with me. And I would be given a $5 bill. And I was always asked, "Can you get through the week on this?" That's not equal, is it? So when I asked again, "Could you please give me $100? I didn't have access to money. I couldn't go to a bank account that we had jointly and take money out if I needed it. Anything that I needed had to come through him." And so he said no, and I started to get irate, and I got a little bit tearful, and I was quiet, and then I waited a day, and I came back and I said, "No, I really need you to understand. It's embarrassing for me to ask for this, but I don't have a purse. And I would really, really like to have a nice purse. I don't want to go to a store and buy a really lousy purse. With the number of hours that I work, I should be allowed to have a nice purse." And what I meant by that was, I didn't need a designer bag. I just wanted a well-made, well-constructed purse. And I said, I would like to have $100 so that I can go to a store and buy a really nice leather handbag. And he said no and walked away. So this went on for, I would say, somewhere between a week and 10 days. And then just one afternoon, he was sitting at the coffee table, and we were having a discussion. And I said, "I don't feel that I've been treated fairly, and I still am asking for $100 from the lottery winnings." And without saying a word, he opened up his wallet, pulled out a $100 bill, and threw it at me, and got up and walked away. That's financial abuse. When you're in a committed relationship with someone, anyone who would torture you over money, especially after telling you something is and I believed it. I keep on buying lottery tickets because we're going to hit the lottery one of these days. We might be able to go on a nice trip. We might be able to put some money in savings. It'll be wonderful. Won't that be great? The day that we win. Oh, how lovely. But in reality, it was a lie. It was just simply a lie. Some people refer to this as future faking. It's a highly narcissistic trait. It's a high narcissistic trait, is future faking somebody, and then when the reality shows up, it is not what they offered you, and it's not what they promised you. So here's another one. When we were newly married, the first year of marriage, he decided that he wanted to tell me something, and we were budgeting. It was a Friday, and we always did our budgets on Friday, or usually no later than Saturday morning. But anyways, we were doing our budgeting, and he says, "Oh, by the way, I need to tell you something. I bought something." And I said, "Oh, okay, what'd you buy?" So I bought a gym membership. And I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't know how much a gym membership cost. And I said, "Oh, where'd you get a membership?" And he said, and he named the place, and it was one town over, maybe about 8 miles from our house. And I said, "Well, what a great idea. That's fantastic. You know what? It would be so cool if we went to the gym together. We could go and work out together." And this place at that time did have a water facility too. It wasn't huge, but you were able to do water exercise, which is still, that's my thing. It's always been my favorite. And so I said, "Well, how much was it? Because if I have to save up for mine, I will. Or if we have to budget for it for a few weeks to be able to pay for it." And he said, "Well, I bought it. I checked the newspaper. Somebody was selling their membership, and I got a great deal on it, and I bought it for $500. And my heart skipped a beat. I said, "What?" And I'm thinking I couldn't have $100 for the lottery winnings out of 1,100, but he can spend $500 on a gym membership and tell me afterwards. So I said, "Okay, $500 you spent." And I said, "All right, so I can just check the paper and see if somebody," because back then people were selling their memberships to different clubs all the time. They were not hard to get, and they were transferable. So I said, "Well, we can just watch the paper until another one comes up at a fairly decent discount like that," because I asked him how much it would be if he had just gone to the place and purchased his own membership, and it would have been more than twice as much at that time. So he said, "No, that's not going to happen." And I said, "Well, just kind of curious, why not?" He said, "I don't want you coming to the gym where I go. I don't want my wife coming to the place where I work out. It will make me look bad." So there's a psychological and emotional abuse right along with it, with the financial abuse. But I said, "Well, I don't really think it's fair that you get to spend $500 on yourself and I don't get the equivalent. I thought this marriage was based in equality." And he said, "Well, it is. It is a marriage based in equality. You just don't get to have $500 for a gym membership, and most certainly not at a place where I go." So he said, "You can get your own membership somewhere else, but we don't have the money for it now because I just spent $500 on a gym membership for myself, so it's going to have to wait a while." And some of you might not have thought that that's financial abuse, but it is. It is, because a $500 purchase back then would be like a $1,000 purchase now, maybe more. And we would not have, I mean, there should have been discussion about a purchase at that price point, and there wasn't. And finding out like a week after it happened didn't feel very good. But the point that I'm making is that a financial abuser will always feather their own nest and leave you hanging. They just don't care. They don't want equality, but they will feign equality in order to, like Dr. Roberta Shaler used to say, Once they feel that they've got you, once they feel secure that they have you where they want you, then all of a sudden these toxic behaviors will come out, such as wanting to move you out to the country, way far away from your family, hundreds to thousands of miles away from your family, way out in a cabin in the woods where it's just you and them, and then there's only one car and it's theirs, and then there's no access to money. And before you know it, they've got you having multiple children, but no way to go get food for them, or to go get somebody to the doctor, or to, no way to pay for things to furnish your home, or to clothe your children, or to meet your needs and their needs. Financial abusers can be very, very, very smooth about getting you and pursuing you and sweeping you off your feet. And again, this is not to shame an individual, because many, many of us were kind, good-hearted, wonderful, trusting, open-hearted, open-minded, loving, trusting human beings. And we didn't come into the world jaded and wanting to protect ourselves and walking through life like this, weaving and dodging and blocking our face for in case an abuser might do us harm. We don't take our steps through life that way. Doesn't feel good to live that way. So we trust, and they take advantage, and we can get considerably harmed and injured. Another one that I've experienced is the spouse who will go and buy property that was supposed to be owned by both of you. And you say, we saved cash. We saved it in a dresser drawer. For the first few years we were married, we were saving and saving and saving and saving and saving, working like crazy and saving money. And when we found a 5-acre parcel of land that we both wanted to build a house on, and we got out of the car, we walked on it. He asked me, "Do you think this is it? Is this the parcel of land that we should buy?" And I said, "I think it is." He said, "Okay, great. I'll call the number on the sign." And he did. And the guy said, "Yeah, you can come on over, and I'll make a cash deal with you. Sure, I'd be super happy to have a cash deal." Well, he went over to that house the next day while I was at work, and we had an agreement. I worked from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm going to come home, change my clothes, wash up. We're going to get in the car, and we're going to go off to, one town over, a 7-mile ride, to go purchase our land. When I came home, I was met at the door with, guess what? Surprise! I have a surprise for you. You don't have to go anywhere. Guess what? It's all taken care of. You can just relax and eat your lunch. He didn't make me lunch, but the response was, you can just relax and eat lunch. You can just relax for the rest of the day. Guess what? We're landowners now. We own 5 acres of land. I said, wait a second. You bought that land without me present? We were supposed to go together. And he said, no, I wanted to take care of it for you. I said, but if I wasn't there to sign the deed, then my name is not on that property, and you just bought yourself a parcel of land, a 5-acre parcel of land, without me present, using the money that I helped to earn. Are you telling me that that's what happened? And he said, yeah. And I said, we need to go over there right away and see what we can do about this, or we need to call an attorney now. Because I'm not going to co-own land with you by not owning it at all. That's not co-owning. That's you owning the land and expecting me to help you build a house on it and be your tenant. I'm not going to be a spouse who is your tenant. And we went round and round and round and round for years on that. And he refused, adamantly refused, to go to the attorney's office with me and have my name added to the deed. That is blatant, in your face financial abuse. And I still stayed because I didn't think that that financial abuse was severe enough for me to end my marriage. The 61-year-old survivor that I am now looks at that and says, this is how I speak to myself about that. You were young. You were in your early 20s. You were inexperienced. and you were trauma bonded. You did not have the ability to take that step and say, I need to find a couple responsible adults who are mature, who can advise me exactly how to get out of this toxic situation now. In that situation, when he refused, for months, that was more than enough evidence for me to say, this is boundary time. This is time for me to get out of this toxic situation, because if he would steal tens of thousands of dollars from me, what wouldn't he do? And this stuff happens in same-sex partnerships. It happens in any kind of partnership, an intimate partnership that any human being could ever have. It is not just a man doing it to a woman situation. In my case it was, but it could have been anyone. So there were many more financial abuse, toxic situations. Another one was refusing to allow me to have my own checking account. I had my checkbook hidden in the kitchen cupboard, and I'd only had my checking account for just a few days, maybe a week or two at the most. But we were doing dishes, and I couldn't reach to put the wine glasses away on the top shelf. But he was over 6 feet tall, and he went to put something way up on the top shelf in our kitchen in our first apartment, and said, "Wait a second, what's this?" And he pulled, I had to stand on a chair to hide it up there, but he found it, and he opened it. He said, "You can't have this. You have to go close this," because all of that financial abuse pushed me to want to have my own finances. I wanted to be able to have a checking account. I don't know, I think I had received some some money from my parents for my birthday or something like that, and I went and opened a checking account. I wasn't allowed to have it. So he said, "You have to go tomorrow and close this account. You cannot have this." And I did it. The person that I am now would look at that individual and say, no, I have autonomy. I have the right to have a checking account. You've stolen tens of thousands of dollars from me. Come on. You can't handle me having $100 in the bank? Come on. It's ridiculous. And I would have to say, you need to re-examine your priorities, because bullying me to disallow me to have any money that's in my own name is financial abuse. And you need to ask yourself, is this, and I don't mean I would be homicidal in any way. I don't mean that at all, but it's just a common expression. Is this the hill you want to die on? Really? Is this how you want this to go down, where you're putting your foot down and saying you cannot have that? Because my answer to that is going to be a giant, right in your face, fuck you. Who do you think you are? Is this an equal rights relationship, or is it not? Well, you're proving once again to me it is not. But this person would, every single time it came up, would swear to me, "I believe in equality. This is an equal relationship. I am staunchly for human rights and for women's rights and equality in all relationships. I really, truly believe in equality." And I'd say, "Then why can't I have equality here?" And he would say, "I don't know, just not on this, okay? Just let this one go." That's what we call cognitive dissonance. What they want and what they are showing you, what they're giving you, do not match what they say. What they say is happening does not match what's actual reality. So when a person experiences cognitive dissonance, what happens is the psychological responses to abuse. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological state where our mind cannot hold two opposing concepts at the same time. It is one of the rules of the mind. The mind cannot say that it's 90 degrees outside and it's snowing right now. We cannot say that this basketball is solid orange, but it's also bright white. The whole thing. It's bright white and it's solid orange. Both of those at the same time can't happen. It's either one or the other. We can't convince somebody this lovely animal that I'm holding is a cat dog. It is both cat and it's also a dog. No, it has to be one or the other. But when we are with a really slick abuser who is absolutely committed with every cell of their being to being a gaslighting, Olympic level liar, that does internal damage to our processing. It does damage to our ability to sort and reason and think clearly. It's like being constantly expected to walk with one shoe being having no sole on it. There's one of your shoes has a sole and the other one, your foot's just right directly on the ground. Like a huge part of the sole of your foot is uncovered. And how much can you travel and walk through life with one shoe that works and one shoe that doesn't? It's going to drive you crazy. It would be like being expected to go through life working, driving, taking care of your pets, taking care of your kids, cooking, showering, dressing, doing everything with mittens on. And they're mittens that you can't take off. How would you do that? Your brain would be befuddled. You would not be able to do that. It would drive you crazy. But cognitive dissonance is the psychological equivalent of those things, where your brain can't make sense of these two separate realities. I'm supposed to believe they're one and the same, that they're interchangeable, and that they're both happening, but that's not possible. We get the same feeling when someone says, I love you, but they literally show us contempt. They cheat, they lie, they steal, they smear you, they control you financially, emotionally, psychologically, sexually. They use verbal control, all of these different things. If a person is saying, I love you, but they're doing all of these toxic things, or just one. What if it's just financial abuse and most of the other stuff is okay? It's still cognitive dissonance that your brain is not going to be able to make sense of. And what does that do to us? That's where we start to have all of the after effects of trauma will be present. So we will begin to have psychological changes, which means we'll be dissociated. We'll have anxiety. We'll become depressed. We could even become suicidal if it's severe enough. I know that happened to me in 2021. I could not take the cognitive dissonance anymore, could not take the abuse anymore, and I felt that I just don't know what to do. I can't, this is now so huge, I can't handle it without the help of some professionals, and that's what I ended up having to do. And for a few days, I was receiving inpatient care in a wonderful place, a very kind and compassionate and caring, wonderful facility. And I'm not embarrassed or ashamed at all to say that that happened to me, because that was the biggest leap in my recovery journey, is making that decision and having the clarity and the understanding. Oh, I didn't come onto the planet faulty, bad, broken, shameful, or malfunctioning. I bumped into and stayed entwined, just absolutely enmeshed and entwined with a person who had high antisocial and high narcissistic traits, was highly, highly manipulative. So they had the Machiavellian traits, the narcissistic traits, the antisocial traits, the just all of the ways that a person can be extremely toxic and abusive of another person. And so there are many more examples that I've experienced of financial abuse from a partner, but we can be financially abused by our children. We can be financially abused by a neighbor, a coworker. There might be somebody who just hits you up for small amounts of money all the time and says, I'll pay you back, but they never will. I experienced that in my 10th grade college math class. There was a guy named Frank who sat next to me, and every day he would say, hey, honey, hey, sweetie, you got a quarter? And I used to give it to him. If I had it in my pocket, I would give it to him because I was programmed in childhood. Somebody asks you for something, that's a need, and if we can accommodate them, we're supposed to do it because that's what Christ would do. That's what we were taught a long time ago in elementary school. And then here I am as a 10th grader who's handing money over to a senior who's in a 10th grade math class, and I'm noticing he's doing it to everybody all the time. And what is he doing? By the time it's the lunch period for this kid, he's going into the cafeteria and feasting on whatever he wants because he's got pockets full of quarters that he's collected from all different kids probably since the moment he got on the bus. And the funny thing is, took me a while to understand he was a child of wealth. He was a child of privilege. Didn't even need to be doing that. I think for him it was a game. And it was a way of controlling people. And I think he was getting a really deep satisfaction from knowing you might be going to the cafeteria and eating nothing, but I'm going to be filling my belly and I'm going to be having ice cream and all the good stuff. And too bad for you. Too bad. Took me a while to figure out this is a person who has very little conscience. And in adulthood, I mean, this is just in adolescence, but in adulthood, very, very likely to be a person with high narcissistic and or high antisocial traits, meaning no conscience, no empathy, no remorse. So we can look at these situations and say, is it financial abuse? And ask ourselves, what does this action that this person is taking with me or against me financially, what is it causing me to feel? How do I feel when I'm with them? And how do I feel after I find out the thing that they did that was absolutely rotten or mildly offending but happening in a recurring way, because abuse is cumulative. But we can teach ourselves. Most important thing here, most important thing of all, we can teach ourselves. It's not my fault, it's their fault. I didn't bring this on, and just because I just recognize it, I recognize it has gone on a long time, but I recognize it now. It's not time to beat up the self. It's time to thank the self for the awareness, have compassion for ourselves, and say, I was bumping up against a master manipulator, but they had their last manipulation with me. So now it's time for me to make a boundary, say this will not happen anymore. It's time for me to pause and say, to ourselves, I love you. I feel compassion for you. You're not stupid. You are brilliant. And this person tapped into your willingness to give. They tapped into your forgiveness. They tapped into your empathy, because they're siphoning it off like you're a gas tank. It's not a me problem, that's a them problem. So I can just hug myself a little bit. And there's nothing to forgive because I didn't do anything wrong or bad. I don't have to forgive myself. I love self-compassion way more than self-forgiveness. Because self-forgiveness means I'm telling myself I did something wrong here. No. If somebody takes advantage of me, why would I blame me? If that person gets in a car and drives drunk, would I blame myself for that? If that person goes into a store and steals from the store, would I blame myself for that? If they go someplace and lie to any person, whether I know them or not, am I responsible for that? Of course not. Of course not. They just happened to use me as one of the people that they siphon off of, because they don't have much of a conscience, or they might have no conscience, certainly don't have any empathy. They don't apologize for what they do. If they do apologize and then it happens again, it was never an apology. It's a really, really, just a really great thing to have in our mind, just to remind ourselves, oh, I did hear an apology from them once before, and then they went and did it again. They weren't sorry. They were just waiting for me to forget. So, financial abuse. I'm going to give you one last example. With the accountants that I went to for years with my spouse, I had to let them know I am aware now of the forgery that was happening of my signature on state and federal documents for taxes. I am now aware of it. And I'm making a boundary, and I'm saying if it happens again, that then I would have to take the appropriate action against this individual. But that was not hard to do. I had to step in on behalf of myself and say, this will no longer occur. I will not tolerate that anymore. And so, I don't speak in my videos about whether somebody should stay or whether they should go, because we live in a world where things are complex, where we have children, we have financial entanglements, we have co-ownership of properties, we have co-ownership of bank accounts, things like that. All these many, many different ways that we can have financial entanglements with another person. It is not appropriate for one person to say, well, you should end that relationship right now, and the only answer is for you to leave. I had a psychologist about 6 years ago that I was working with, and she wouldn't stop saying to me, the only solution here, she would say this phrase, nothing's going to get better until you have started and completed the complete and total dissolution of the marriage. You must get a divorce. Well, for a mental health practitioner to telling somebody to get divorced is a legal advice. It is not a psychological counsel at all. It is a legal advice. And what that means is somebody stepping out of their wheelhouse. It also is, in professional terms, we refer to that as stepping outside of your scope of practice, which is highly, highly unethical. So I firmly believe no person has the right to judge and say, you need to be divorced from that person. I'm a person who believes separation. If you separate so that you are no longer experiencing the abuse from that individual, if you want to keep your finances intact the way you had them, if it's working for you, good for you. Every single person is on their path, and we do not have the right to tell another person, hey, I know what's best for you, and you need to get out of that relationship, or you need to end that marriage, or you need to get a divorce attorney and get the ball rolling on this divorce today. No, that is not the answer in this situation. We can stop abuse from continuing, and it does not have to involve anybody either being told they must stay or they must go. It is an autonomous decision. And that's one of the reasons why I love being a certified trauma recovery coach, is because we do not take a harsh stand with ourselves or with anybody else when we're dealing with abuse. And the only exception to that, and I'm going to mention Dr. Shaler one more time, and she taught all of us for years on her podcast. Her and her professional friends were also teaching us the same things. And that is, we must get out of a situation if someone is physically attacking us or abusing us or putting us in harm's way. If they are harming our child, our pet, or ourself, we must get away. But everything else is a personal choice, and we all are on our path, and we all have our own reasons, and we all have our own set of circumstances. And the most important thing is that we honor ourselves, make our boundaries, have compassion for our own decisions, for mistakes we may have made, for things that we couldn't have known about, and if we did know about them, we would have acted differently. And I'm not in love with the word grace, A lot of people say, well, just give ourselves some grace in this situation. My personal choice is the word compassion. I have compassion for myself, I have compassion for you. And the very best thing that we can do in this situation of financial abuse is to recognize it and do our very best to meet our own needs while we hold ourselves in a state of loving compassion. So if you're interested in working with me as your certified trauma recovery coach, please reach out. I would love to get a phone call from you. My phone number is 716-994-3052. You can call me anytime. I'd be so happy to set up a discovery call with you and explain the concepts of certified trauma recovery coaching. And also, I am finishing up school, and very soon I'll be delighted to announce to you that I'm a brand new hypnotherapist, almost finished with my program, and absolutely loving becoming a hypnotherapist, which means I will be able to offer more resources to my clients to help them heal. So I also, my website is linbouthillier.com. And you can email me, lin@linbouthillier.com, and all of my information, my contact information, is in the description page for my video. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share on whatever platform you'd like to share my information. Hit the notification bell, put comments in the comment section. If you have a request for a video that you'd like me to make, please let me know. I love doing that for my viewers. It makes me so happy to be able to make a requested video, and then I contact you in the comments and let you know that your video has been posted for you to watch. So please remember, self-care is never ever selfish. It is essential to well-being, and that you are infinitely worthy of your trauma recovery, and that includes, it especially today includes, your recovery from financial abuse. Have the very best day, everyone. Take care.